Welcome back to the Competitor Talk. This is your host, Kyle Dangler. Today we're going to have special guest Nick Podkul of the Dunedin Blue Jays, which is the Class A affiliate for the Toronto Blue Jays. He plays second base, and you can follow him on his Twitter at Dr_pod, P-O-D, cool, C-O-O-L. So today we're going to just give him a call, and we're going to have a nice little chat, discuss his career, a little bit about him, and he was just in the All-Star game for Class A, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Hello?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good. So we're just on the podcast right now, and just get right to it.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. So you were just voted this year to the All-Star game for Class A, so you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a good experience. I started the year off pretty slow, so I got a little bit hot towards the middle of April and carried that through kind of the middle of May, so I think that's what got me in. But it was cool because the All-Star game was in South Bend, Indiana, which is where I went to college.
Awesome, yeah, Notre Dame.
I had a lot of friends and family come out for that. So it was just kind of cool to be back home and have a good achievement like that.
Awesome. Yeah, so you said you got off to a slow start and then you kind of kicked it up. Did you do anything differently, or were you just struggling at first, or what happened?
I think it was just, you're playing in the Midwest in early April. It's cold. It's
Yeah.
my first full season, so just trying to get used to everything. Didn't really change a whole lot. Just kind of stuck to it. And I knew that you're hitting balls hard. Like, that's just how baseball works sometimes. So just sticking to it, trying to get through that slump. So staying positive.
Definitely. So you said you went to school at Notre Dame. Do you have any kind of like memories or something there? I know you said you played there in South Bend, so that must have been pretty cool. Was it at the same stadium, or was it just at a minor league stadium there, the All-Star game?
No, it was at the minor league stadium. It's about 10 minutes south of campus, but still just being in the area, and South Bend's kind of known for Notre Dame and the university and stuff like that. So just to go back there, and like I said, I just felt like I was going back home. So it was a good experience.
Definitely. So that's at the All-Star game. I mean, was it more of? I know I've had a few discussions with a few other players. They said it's more of a kind of. It's nice to have a relaxing game. Kind of take a deep breath. So did you feel that, or were you more kind of nervous that it was an All-Star game, or did you feel more relaxed? You'd say.
No, it was definitely more relaxing. It was you go and you hang out with all the guys in the league who made it. So you get to meet a lot of really cool, really talented players. And then one of my teammates was in the home run derby the first night we were down there. So it's cool seeing the home run derby and stuff like that. But it was, I wouldn't say it was stressful at all. It was a lot of fun, and I was happy to be a part of it. Definitely.
So you're the first half division winner. So that means, I'm assuming, right, you go to the playoffs automatically?
Yes.
Definitely. Awesome. So when you do that, I know I talked to another player in the Tampa Bay Rays organization with the same thing, and he was talking about kind of the mentality going into the second half. Do you feel it's more relaxing, or do you feel like it's going to kind of bring you guys down with kind of the momentum, or do you think you guys will like keep the same momentum?
That's a tough question, just because everyone to relax, because everyone's goal is obviously to keep improving like individually and work your way up the system. Hopefully get to the big league someday. But winning the first half, it makes it a little bit easier, so you don't have to really stress out about winning the second half. You just get to go out there and have fun and work hard still. Improve what you need to improve on, but at the same time, it does take a little bit of weight off your shoulders just to go out there and just play the game that you can.
Definitely. Yeah, because I know his name was Kenny Rosenberg. He's in the Tampa Bay Rays organization, AA, and he was just mentioning how kind of like they could lose every game and they're still going to the playoffs. So I didn't know if you felt that like it was gonna almost bring like the morale down, or kind of you guys were all gonna just keep on trying to win. I just think it's interesting how your season not over, but the second half, beside your individual stats, doesn't really have an effect on you. So I just thought it was interesting how they did that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird system, but I mean, at the end of the day, you still wanna play like like you're trying to make the playoffs because you don't want to carry a really bad second half into the playoffs. You just want to kind of keep the momentum going.
Definitely. Yeah. So just back at your Notre Dame days, I saw how freshman year you played most of the games, and then sophomore, junior year you kind of, you know, took the reins at your position, and you played 58 games your sophomore year, 54. You played all your games. Was there anything going into that? Definitely at a big college, in the ACC. Did you do anything differently from freshman to sophomore year? Because it seems like you elevated your game even higher.
So going into freshman year, I wasn't a high recruit out of high school. So I just kind of wanted to get on the field any way I can.
Definitely.
But I was undersized. I was still immature. So I think the summer after my freshman year, going into sophomore year, is when I made some pretty big strides. I started hitting some home runs in summer ball. Just got a little bit stronger. And I think that helped in the sophomore and junior year. So just like trying to carry that on. And then once you see some success, it makes it a lot easier to build that confidence. And I had a little bit of success freshman year, and it was kind of a realization for me. It's like, oh wow, I can compete at this level, and I can play with these guys. So I just carried that in, and it all worked out. So.
Yeah. Did you ever play? I don't know what league you played in the summer. Did you ever play at Cape Cod or anywhere?
No, I was supposed to go into the Cape Cod league the summer after my junior year, but I got drafted, so I chose that instead.
Just talking about the draft. I know you said you just left after your junior year. Was there any kind of thought in the back of your head to finish out your senior year, just to get the degree and then go in the pro ball? Like what drew you to just go straight to the draft and accept it?
It's one of those things that when the time comes, it's just so hard to pass up, just because
Definitely.
When you're a little kid, you want to be a professional baseball player. It's what you hope and dream about every night before you go to bed. So when you get that call, it's kind of like, well, it's I'm still going to go back, but I'm going back this fall to get my degree.
Awesome.
Or to knock out one. So I have 2 semesters left, so I have to knock one out this fall. But when I got that call, I was like, this is what I've been working for my whole life. So I don't want to let the opportunity pass.
Definitely. So you get to knock it out this fall, 1 semester, and then you'll go back probably the next fall?
Yep, exactly.
Awesome. Now, what happens there? I know I heard of a few people. Now does your scholarship stay, or do you have to pay for it? Like, what happens there?
No, the part of when you sign is
the
that
Tampa Bay pays? I'm sorry,
the team,
Toronto.
The big league team has kind of like a scholarship program, like a school program, so they pay for
Awesome.
you to go back to school. That's kind of like their draw to get you to go as a junior. To say that they'll cover your school whenever you decide to go back. So.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, they're paying at that point. And like you said, you took it up. I don't see why you wouldn't at that point.
Right,
kind of thing.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Because you're probably getting more paid. You don't really get full rides in baseball for college, so it it's kind of a win-win in that sense.
Definitely. So I know you mentioned what's your degree in? Just curious.
What do you got? In American Studies.
Awesome. Now, just after your baseball career, do you have any aspirations? Any plans? Or I know you're still young.
Yeah, no, I don't really have like a set plan of what I want to do, just because
you're so focused.
Baseball's pretty much been my whole life up to this point, so I think I probably want to stay in baseball. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do.
Definitely.
But it's just you do something your whole life, you grow a huge love for it. So I think that's what I want to end up doing whenever I'm done playing.
Definitely. Now I know I saw you played a little basketball back in high school. Did you have any aspirations or hopes to maybe play that in college, or were you always just a baseball guy?
Yeah, so I actually was thinking about quitting baseball and doing like AAU
basketball.
Wow. And my parents wouldn't let me. They're like, "No, you're way too good at baseball. You got to stick with it." But,
definitely.
I love basketball. I'm from Indiana, so it's a big basketball state,
Yeah.
and I'll still shoot around here and there when I can. But you just got to be careful you don't get hurt. But
Yeah.
I love basketball, and I always joke around and say that I still have one more year of eligibility to go back and play basketball if I get hurt in baseball.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, that's awesome. So, just going off of that kind of, did you ever, growing up in Indiana, did you ever, besides basketball and baseball, I know you went to Notre Dame, did you have any other, colleges you were looking at, or did you more just focus on, I want to go to Notre Dame, I want to kind of like stay in the area?
Yeah, so Notre Dame was actually the first college to call me, and I went down and took a visit, and some other colleges called me, and that it was like smaller Division I, some Division II schools, and once I took my visit to Notre Dame, it was kind of like, I don't know how much better it gets because it's close to home. My family can come see me. It's a good education. You're playing in the ACC. So it was kind of a no-brainer once I took a visit there.
Definitely. Now, just going off of that, I know you Notre Dame. Did you ever? So, you were always 100%, going to Notre Dame after that visit? Okay, I've never been there, but everyone goes there and says, kind of feels like home almost, especially since you're from there.
It's a really family-oriented atmosphere. It's just beautiful campus. It's kind of hard to explain unless you've been there. It's really breathtaking when you walk on campus and you just feel like this is a spot. This is where I'm meant to be. So
definitely. Now I know you're in Class A right now. Just besides the game of baseball, on the field, do you have any schedules that you have to follow, workouts or anything, or what's your day like besides just going to the field?
So right now we're staying on the beach right now.
Awesome.
So you can walk out, go to the beach, hang out, but pretty much it's wake up, eat, and then you head to the field pretty early, hang out for a little bit, and then they open the cages for you, and then you have some sort of team scheduled batting practice, and then you play, and then eat, head back. So
awesome. Now, do you have any a weight scheduled training specified for you, or does the team all do one have the same routine?
It kind of varies. It's if we're on a long stretch, we might get one lift in a week, and then let certain times you can go in or whatever. If you want to get two, sometimes maybe 3 lifts a week, you can do that. So they're pretty good with understanding how your body feels.
Definitely.
Playing every single day, so they work with you, but there is some structure that you need to follow.
Definitely. Now I just know everyone down in Class A, I'm sure, is trying to fight and get to the big leagues. Do you feel that there's a sense of a team morale, or do you feel sometimes people are kind of just looking out for themselves? That's got to be tough, trying to do good for the team, but also yourself.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, all your teammates, these are the guys that without them, you're not going to get anywhere. They push you, you push them. They pull for you, you pull for them. This is a tough game, and if you're solely focused on yourself, it's going to be really hard to make it. So you kind of have to pull with your teammates, and they'll pull with you. I think it's a lot easier when you invest in your teammates.
Definitely.
And you want to see them succeed just as bad as you want to succeed. So there's definitely competition. There's always going to be. But at the end of the day, it's just they're your teammates for a reason, and they're going to help you as much as you're going to help them. So.
Definitely. Now, did you feel that it was a tough transition? I was just talking with a few other players. Do you feel that it was tough going from college to pro ball? Did you feel there was the pitching gets harder, obviously, everything kind of, there's a step up. Did you feel it was tough?
Yeah, it was definitely a huge transition. Just from travel to, you're playing every single day. You're using a wood bat instead of a metal bat. The pitchers are all really, really good. So, yeah, it was a tough transition at first, but you learn how to handle it and deal with the ups and downs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's just you got to go out and you got to perform. And you got to understand that it's a game and it's the same game you've been playing your whole life.
Definitely. Now, I know you guys are in Florida right now, so do you mostly just stay in the Florida region when you have your games?
Yeah, so the Florida State League, that's the league that I'm in right now, and it's pretty much all the spring training fields for the Florida team. So we just got done playing in Port St. Lucie. That's where the Mets
play.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and now we're in Dayton, or Daytona Beach, not Dayton, that's in Ohio. But yeah, it's a good league. It's hot, but really cool stadiums, baseball too. So can't complain.
Definitely. So you guys play at the major league affiliates stadiums like George M. Steinbrenner, like stuff like that.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. So just being in the Blue Jays organization, were you always kind of like a fan of any specific team, or have you just invested yourself in the Blue Jays organization?
You mean like growing up?
Yeah. Did you have like any favorite team?
Yeah, I grew up a huge Cubs fan.
Okay.
Obviously, growing up, I was like, I'm going to play for the Cubs someday. Because I'm from pretty close to Chicago, so
yeah,
diehard Cubs fan. But now it's kind of
now you're a Blue Jay fan.
You got to switch a little bit. You can't be rooting for the Cubs. You got to be rooting for the Jays. But yeah.
So did you have any specific player you looked up to, like at your position or anything that you tried to model yourself after, or?
I don't know if I can model myself after this guy, but my favorite player is Javier Baez.
Okay.
I love the way he plays the game.
Definitely
my favorite player.
So do you have any specific thing you're working on right now, whether it's like feet transfers at second base with double plays, or kind of working on power or contact? Have you been trying to like specifically hone in on something?
Yeah, at the plate, obviously trying to get a little bit bigger and stronger, faster. That's something you always be working on. But more in particular, I'm trying to get my power numbers up a little bit. Hitting a lot of balls for warning tracks, so I'm trying to like break through that. Hit some more doubles and home runs. And then in the field, just trying to get my arm better. Just trying to attack that every single day and be the best infielder that I can be. So I feel like that could be a deciding factor when it comes down to it later in my career.
Definitely. So right now you're just specifically at second base, right?
I'm actually playing mostly third base now. I started the
third
year
base,
playing mostly second, but I would say I'm playing mostly third.
In college, were you second in college?
Yeah, I started at third my freshman year, and then actually played a little bit of first base when my first baseman got hurt freshman year, and then from sophomore year and junior year I was strictly second base.
Now, did you feel that going from second to third, you're obviously in the hot corner now, you're a little closer. Was it tough for you, or did you? I mean, you played it in college a little bit, but was it kind of tough going from that? Obviously farther throw.
Yeah, it was a bit of a change. Just like the read's different, the footwork is different, the throw is different. It's obviously it's weird. It's a huge difference, but like it also is. You see it, catch it, throw it. It's easier when you try to keep things simple, and obviously it's a lot easier said than done. And I've had to put a lot of time in at third base trying to get used to it. I'm doing a pretty decent job now, but it's really easy to overcomplicate things. So it's like you try to keep it simple, it makes it a bit easier.
Now, did you have like any like coaches? Do you have like an infield coach that you could kind of work with on that, or?
Yeah, so when I was in Lansing at the beginning of the year, my infield coach was our manager actually. We put a lot of time and effort into working with the infielders and whatever our specific need was, and just anything you really needed. So he was really good with that. And then I just got down to Florida a couple days ago, so. I haven't really gotten my total routine down yet, but I've done a little bit with the manager as well, and kind of like whatever you need before the game, they're willing to work with you and give you tips on what you're doing, what you're doing well, and what you could be doing better and stuff like that, just to help you grow as a player.
Definitely, yeah. I was going to mention a little bit later. Congratulations on the promotion of Single A Advance.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Definitely. So, Did you get that after the All-Star game then? They moved you up?
Yeah, it was right after the All-Star game I made the call.
Now, is that like a tough process, going from one region, now you got to go to Florida, you got to kind of meet all the new teammates, got to get a place to live, stuff like that? Or did they kind of help you out with that?
It was a hectic day. I was actually at home because I only live an hour away from Notre Dame, so I went home after the All-Star game.
Mm.
And then I got the call, so all my stuff was in my apartment in Lansing, and my baseball stuff was in Dayton. So I had to go to drive to Lansing, and then drive to Dayton, pick up my baseball stuff, and then fly down to Dunedin, which is where we're at in Florida. So it was a hectic day of travel, but it's all part of what you sign up for. So I'm happy to be here.
Definitely. Now, going from that, I know you've only played 3 games so far, but have you seen a change or anything? Going from single A to advanced? Or not yet?
I mean, there's, everyone's obviously, just a little bit ahead of the next level, but for the most part, it's not too much of a change. I think the biggest thing is that you just gotta, you just gotta go out there and be confident, and we brought you up here for a reason, so just go do your thing, and I think if I carry that positive mindset to it and that confidence, I'll be all right.
Definitely. Now, I know you just got your promotion, but I was talking to a few other players kind of about, if they have their own timetable in their head or timelines, when they want to be in the majors. Do you have a realistic timeline in your own head?
No, I haven't really set a timeline just because as much as it's in my hands to move up and make it to the big league, it's also not in my hands, and it's something that I can't really control. So I'm just trying to go out there and put together a good at bat, string together some good seasons, and then see what happens. Because if you set an expectation and say I have to be in the bigs in 2-3 years and you don't make it, then you're kind of panicking. So. I don't know what the road ahead looks like, but just trying to have fun and improve as a ball player.
Definitely. Now, when you got the call for the draft, was that kind of a hectic process? The draft?
Yeah, that was pretty hectic. I know it's not like the greatest day ever, but it was pretty nerve wracking for me. You got teams telling you you're going to go here, you're going to go here.
Definitely.
And then those rounds pass, and you're not getting the call, and then you're like, oh gosh, maybe I'm not getting drafted this year, blah, blah, blah. But then Jays finally called and said they're going to take me.
Awesome.
So at that point, it was just pure joy.
Did you have, you were mentioning, teams were telling you you're going to go here. Did you have any, sense of, you went in the 6th round, but did you have a sense of, where you were going to go before that? Did you have a sense of where you were going to go before, you actually got drafted? Because you were mentioning teams were calling you, telling you,
Yeah, it was just, what people are telling me. Some guys are saying, you're going to be some guys say you're a 3 to 5 round guy, some guys say you're 5 to 10, and then some guys say you're, 15 to 30.
Because you were around 7, so I didn't know if you knew.
Yeah, you just have a bunch of guys, you don't really know what's going to happen, so.
Definitely.
But yeah, like I said, it was hectic, but then once you get the calls, it's the best day ever, so.
Definitely. Now, did you have, in your own head kind of, once this certain round passes, I'm going to just go back to school? Or did you know, if you get drafted, you're going?
Again, that's a tough question because you have a lot more leverage when you're a junior.
Okay.
You go back to your senior year, you don't really have the same opportunity.
Definitely.
So, I mean, yeah, if I would have gotten picked in the 25th, 26th round, I probably would have gone back and just got my degree. But as long as I got a decent amount of money to make the decision worth it,
definitely.
and a decent round, I was pretty much gonna go. So
definitely. Now, when you got drafted, have you ever been to the Rogers Center since, or?
Hello?
Yeah. No, sorry. I guess we broke up for. No, I was just wondering. I was just wondering, since you've been drafted, have you ever been to the Rogers Center or not yet?
I'm sorry, you're kind of breaking it out right now. Let me try to walk over here. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Good.
Yeah, I was just wondering, last question, just, since you've got drafted, have you ever been to the Rogers Center?
Have I what? I'm sorry, man.
Been to the Rogers Center?
Oh, no, I have not been up there yet.
No.
Hopefully someday, but no, not yet. It's just a lot of teams will, take their draft guys up.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had the opportunity.
Yeah, it's just tough for us, just because one, I wasn't a first, second, third round guy,
Okay.
and also you got to go through the border and all that stuff. So
Definitely.
not yet, but hopefully someday. Fingers crossed.
Definitely. Well, yeah, thanks for your time. If you don't have anything else, good luck this year. Congrats on the promotion, and we'll be rooting for you. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, thanks for having me, man. Take care.
No problem. You too.
Bye.
All right, well, you're here to hear first with Nick Podkul of the Dunedin Blue Jays. Have a good day.
Community Talk.
And now for the Community Talk segment of the Competitor Talk. We're going to have guest Matthew Pavlik, who is an incoming sophomore at Seton Hall University. He's a football guru, as he puts it. A lot of hot takes he has planned for the show tonight. Big Giant fan. So, we're going to talk a little bit about them, a little bit about the Ezekiel Elliott situation right now, with the parent holdout on the contracts, along with his predictions for the season, any underdogs that he feels are going to, come out with the season, whether, probably talk a little bit about the Browns also, just because, they're a big team in the news right now with a lot of acquisitions that they've had, so we're going to give them a call now. And yeah, we'll just get going. Hopefully we have a good talk about it. I'm very interested to see what he has to say. He's been saying for a while he's got a lot of awesome hot takes set planned for the show tonight. So it should be fun and definitely, kind of a intriguing one where, you leave the podcast, scratching your head, contemplating, how you feel along with how we feel during the show. So we'll just get going now.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? We're just live on the Competitor Talk. This is Kyle. So how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Can't say I'm doing too bad.
Awesome. Yeah, so, we'll just get right into it. I just wanted to start off real quick with the Ezekiel Elliott news that broke today about 6 hours ago, just with him making plans to leave the country amid his contract holdout, which means he's, as expected, probably not going to show up to training camp on time. I mean, any thoughts about that? The Cowboys.
I can't remember the last time a running back skipped training camp and it actually mattered. I mean, as long as he's there day one, Ezekiel Elliott isn't a guy who comes in out of shape like he's had holdouts before. He has had holdouts before, right?
I believe so. I know he's had problems with the suspensions that he couldn't, I think practice.
Yeah,
but
there were the suspensions too where he came back from, and that was a lot of private workouts.
Yeah. That
might be what I'm thinking of, but I wouldn't worry about it just because of his position and the guy who he is, really.
Okay, yeah, so, I'm assuming then, talking about Ezekiel Elliott, you feel the same way then about Melvin Gordon, as long as he's there week one, he should be ready to go?
If he's playing for the Chargers, then it doesn't matter that much. If he's going to end up getting traded, then it does matter because new team, new system, new scheme, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, do you think he's going to get traded? Do you think they're going to sign him to a contract extension? What do you think is going to go on there?
I don't think he's going to get traded because of how the NFL running backs seem to be valued, and especially for him because he's on that fringe of that tier 1, tier 2 running back, and it's more so because of his injury history than his talent because the dude's a baller.
Yeah.
But if he were to get traded anywhere, I don't even know who's in that market right now. Because a lot of teams who were in that running back market just drafted 1 or 2 running backs.
Yeah, awesome, yeah. So, just moving, outside of the Ezekiel Elliott news, coming into the Giants situation, there's a lot of different talk about them, kind of talking about them, just dumping the season, by trading Odell Beckham. But, there's also some people, speculating, can Eli, kind of do it again one more time? I mean, what's your expectations for the season with Eli, but also the Giants team as a whole?
Well, when I look at the Giants team as a whole, I actually think there's no cause for concern. Like, I think this season is going to be way better than last season was.
Wow.
For a few reasons. First off, last season you lost 7 games by a drive, not including garbage time. Well, sorry, 11 games not including garbage time. 7 games were within a drive after garbage. I'm stuttering. Before garbage time. So in 7 of those games, you had winnable situations.
Yeah. So you can go.
The offense also functioned a lot better without Odell Beckham, which is kind of funny because you wouldn't think that's how it works, but that's also kind of how it worked last year too when he broke his ankle.
Yeah.
Right. I was watching a lot of the tape. I was watching a lot of Giants games because I've had not a lot to do this summer, so I've been watching a lot of Giants. And 5 of Eli's 11 interceptions were forced throws to Odell. Like, all the time, a lot of Giants fans were very upset with Eli because he wasn't forcing throws downfield and things like that. He was taking what the defense gave him too much. He was being too patient. But the only person who he forced throws to was Odell. And it felt like there was a huge disconnect between Eli and Odell. And I'm not putting the blame on Odell. I'm not saying Odell's a diva like some people would say. But what I will say is that between Eli and Odell, there was a lack of trust, and it was trying to be mended by forced plays on the field, which wasn't working. So I actually think the trade is going to be good for both parties because the Giants' offense is more productive without Odell on the field. You could see that in points per game and efficiency spreads. And I think Odell and Baker Mayfield are going to be a great combo.
Yeah, so, just speaking, you talked a little bit about, Odell and the Giants are, both in good situations now. But do you think just, coming out of the trade, they got the value of what, a potential Hall of Famer is worth?
A potential Hall of Famer who's played 16 games in the last 2 seasons.
Well, he's on pace for a lot. You think so?
Because that contract's also $20 million. But
Okay.
The problem is the Giants also are fronting almost all of his contract this season and half of it next season. So that's where the value starts to get a little wish-washy.
Okay, yeah. So, just moving aside from the Odell, bringing in Daniel Jones, I'm not sure if you like the pick at 6, you think they could have got him at 17, but also, kind of in college, he was a walk-on, he didn't show too many, flashy plays. He was kind of, almost like an Eli. Little, not less stats, eye-popping, but certainly, I think the Giants are basing it more on potential than, what he's shown on the field. How do you think Daniel Jones is going to fare in New York?
I think if Daniel Jones were to start day 1, he wouldn't be a guy who would win games, but he wouldn't be a guy who would lose games. He's a very intelligent person. He's like Eli in the sense where he takes what defenses give him a lot, but he does it pretty well. He generally goes through his reads quick. I think a lot of Daniel Jones' problems with the team around him. And this is when it gets to the Daniel Jones Haskins debate, if you don't mind me bringing it there.
No, yeah.
But at that 6th overall pick, when you think, okay, do I want Daniel Jones or Haskins? Right now, Haskins is a better quarterback, but you also have to think about the teams which are around these two guys. Like Haskins, one of his wide receivers was a first-round guy. His other receiver was a second-round guy. 3 of his offensive linemen were drafted in the first few rounds.
Yeah, Ohio State was definitely more prominent.
Rounds. I'm pretty sure most of his team, if not the whole team, was invited to the draft combine. Daniel Jones had 2 of his teammates invited to the draft combine. I took the time to watch a couple Duke games because I didn't freak out when the Giants drafted him. I'm a Giants fan. I just said, all right, I knew this was going to happen, so now I should watch the Duke games to see what I think. And I saw 18 drop passes in 3 games, and there were a lot of good throws. A lot of the deep balls were dropped, too, so his deep ball stats are pretty terrible because of that, I would say, because that Duke team around him was just horrendous. But I think when it comes to Daniel Jones coming into the NFL, he's somebody where he can make all the throws you need him to. His arm strength is on the level of like Deshaun Watson. When Deshaun Watson came in the combine, he was throwing 45 miles per hour, but it was like he can't throw a deep ball. And then he was throwing insane amounts of touchdowns before he popped his ACL. Yeah. So I think Daniel Jones, I don't think there's a single concern with him. He's also fast too. Didn't he run a 4.6, 4.7 40?
Yeah, he's a pretty mobile quarterback. I know he ran for about a 70-yard touchdown last year, so he's definitely, not unathletic.
Yeah, it was actually funny, that highlight. It doesn't even look like he's outspeeding the guy. It's kind of like watching Alvin Kamara run, where he just moves faster across the screen.
Yeah.
But one sec. Sorry about that.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, yeah. I just wanted to know. You just brought up the drop passes. I mean, last year his receivers dropped 38 passes alone. So do you think coming into the new system and obviously having better talent around them, do you think this year the Giants can make the playoffs, or do you think they'll go a little below 500, 500, and next year Daniel Jones will even come into his own? I mean, or do you think he's gonna have to sit out the whole year? I mean, do you think Eli is going to be capable of handling the Giants' offense all year?
No, Eli's the starter this year, and it's because Eli knows NFL defenses. Eli can break down NFL defenses. Eli can run an offense very well. The offensive line was ranked 30th last season. He got sacked 46 times, but he still threw 67%. He still had a 92 QBR, 4,300 yards, second lowest interception ratio of his career in a 16-game season, and he still threw 21 touchdowns. But what it ends up coming down to is, were a lot of those throws dump offs, or a lot of them screenplays? Well, a lot of the dump offs were forced because of the offensive line. So I feel like when it comes to Eli, because he's in a bit of a game manager phase of his career, like Peyton's last couple years, when you get into that, you have to say, well, how's the offensive line going to be? And then you see, well, Nate Solder got his ankle cleaned up a little bit. He'll probably be the same as last season. Will Hernandez will hopefully be better. You got Halapio back at center. I mean, he's all right, but that right side of the line is looking pretty good, especially when you throw in Zeitler in there. He was the Pro Football Focus third-ranked right guard last season with the Cleveland Browns, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so too. Yeah.
And Mike Remmers, he was 30th ranked right guard, but the year before he was the 15th ranked right tackle. Either way, he's better than Chad Wheeler. Yeah. So I think if that Giants offensive line goes from 30 to top 20, which I think it will, especially when you get a guy like Zeitler on there, especially to pair him with Will Hernandez, right? You get that big leadership aspect into it. And then Remmers, he's just a big guy. I mean, that's all you need on the right side. You just need more holes for Saquon to run through, because it was kind of hard to watch half the time Saquon ran to the middle. He just had to bounce around. And, I mean, he's athletic enough to get into the second level, but he really did have to bounce around through guys with his 235 frame.
Yeah. So, just speaking of Saquon, obviously, he had a great season last year. Definitely had one of the more, historic rookie seasons. But do you think, speaking about that, do you think he could bring it to another level? Are you expecting the same performance? Expecting, a little bit less than production than last year? I mean, how do you think Saquon fares in next year, with people watching more film on him and, just being, more of a focal point?
Well, I don't think he's a guy you can game plan against, only because a lot of his plays are chunk plays. Like, a lot of his big plays are plays which break open and things like that. I actually think Saquon's in that level of guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Kamara, McCaffrey. Todd Gurley before the knee, I don't think he's going to be the same with the arthritic knee. And Le'Veon Bell, I'll put Le'Veon Bell up there. I think those five guys can play on any team, in any system, with any offensive situation, and they're going to still be top 5, top 10 running back statistically, but on the field, they're just going to be physically impressive. With Saquon, it's more so with him getting better at hitting holes on the interior and getting around guys. He did a good job of that, especially on the outside, like breaking one or two guys and making good plays, but it's also because of mismatches he creates with his size and his speed. Like, he's an athletic freak. I don't even know. Like, I don't want to be one of those overhyped fans, but he moves pretty well for his size.
Oh, absolutely,
He runs, like, strength-wise, he was hitting people ways which I've only seen Marshawn Lynch hit people the last few years.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just, talking about Saquon, I mean, obviously.
I think he'll be the same. I think he'll produce about the same this year.
No, yeah, I mean, definitely, his versatility along with, catching and running, and then with his agility, I mean, all he has to do, is get like a few inches of space, and I mean, he's taken off. So definitely, you could see him coming into the prime of his career, at such a young age. I mean, definitely for the Giants, I mean, it's got to be a good feeling as specifically a Giants fan for you, knowing that Saquon's going to be there for the next few years.
Yeah, now, he's one of the few running backs who, in this NFL atmosphere can get paid insane top shelf, top level money.
Yeah. So, just moving away from the Giants, obviously the other team in New York is the Jets. I mean, a lot of expectations coming into this year. They spent a lot of money this offseason on guys like C.J. Mosley, Le'Veon Bell.
There's one thing McCagnon's good at is spending a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also bringing in, Jay Crowder for coming back this year, Quincy Enunwa. I mean, and Sam Darnold, he had a little rough patch, with the interceptions last year, but, definitely, a lot of expectations for him coming into this year. I mean, how do you think the Jets fare in the AFC East, but also, going up against the Patriots this year?
I think this year the Jets have that, weird 10-win Jets potential, right? There's a stat. With new Jets head coaches, they're always either 10-6 or 11-5.
Interesting.
Right. So Todd Bowles repeated that. Rex Ryan repeated that. Forgot the name of the guy before Rex Ryan, but he had that stat too. So you have this streak of the Jets seeming to rally around their head coach. Football is the only sport where that really happens, where an atmosphere really can win games. Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to be repeated this year, but what I can tell you is C.J. Mosley, getting him in the middle of the line next to Avery Williamson, that's kind of crazy. I said the linebacker core.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Le'Veon Bell, I don't think they're going to give him the volume he had with the Steelers, but I think that'll help his production, actually. I think he's going to be like a 5-yard per carry guy, like a I don't know, 9-10 yard per catch guy. Le'Veon Bell, watching him play, there's nobody who plays like him. Half the time when he's moving up the field, he kind of looks like he's just walking and waiting for the defense to move first.
Yeah.
It feels like he's playing in slow-mo. It's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But Darnold, a lot of second-year quarterbacks, when they have those big interception seasons in their first year, they flourish in their second year, because a lot of those interceptions in their first year are hiccups. Oh, I made a bad read. Oh, I didn't make a good timing throw. Work on it. And Darnold's a work ethic kind of guy who is going to be working on it and taking reps. So I know he threw 14 interceptions in 13 games or 13 and 12. It was one more interception than games played. I think he'll throw below that this season in a 16-game season.
Yeah, so, just speaking about Le'Veon Bell, I mean, obviously the Jets are a big, heavy, first and second down run team. But, coming off of him, besides him on the offense, they didn't really add a lot of weapons, around Sam Darnold. Yeah. Obviously, Noon was coming back. But then, they got wide receivers. Yeah, like Robbie Anderson, Jay Crowder. They're decent players, but, there's not that, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker type receiver. I mean, can they still win, 10, 11 games with not a depleted wide receiver core, but definitely, lacking compared to other teams?
Well, I'll tell you this. They should have went out and gotten a big receiver, even if he wasn't a wide receiver one, because Darnold does a fantastic job putting the ball up over a defender to come down on one-on-one.
Yeah.
But for not doing anything about that. But I think just because it's football and the way that Adam Gase's offense runs, I think that they could possibly steal 10, but I think it's more realistic to pump the brakes a little bit and until you see the 7 sign. I think that's where the car stops for them.
Yeah, just going to the other side of the ball, with the Jets, obviously, when they went to the AFC Championship, it seems like forever ago, against the Steelers.
Yeah,
I mean, they were
Sanchez, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were a big, heavy, defensive team. And then this year, with the addition of C.J. Mosley and, having, Quentin Williams on the line, Leonard Williams coming back. I mean, do you see the Jets being a potential top 5 defense in the league with, the history of the Jets defense along with, the additions that they've brought in?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah.
I do. The Jets defense is usually top 10 or right outside the top 10. Their defense is never their problem. But especially when you have those big run-stopping guys, and you have pass-rushing linebackers, and you have great zone linebackers too, and they have good corners. They have
Jamal Adams is definitely one of them. Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to scheme. I'm kind of blanking on their defensive coordinator. Do you know who he is?
I'm not totally sure, just because they've been messing around with their head coach and GM. It's kind of been a shuffle there, so I'm not specifically sure either. But yeah.
No, exactly. But Yeah, I see their defense probably. If I'm gonna pin a number, I'm gonna say 8.
Okay, 8. All right. Yeah. So it's Greg Williams coming over. From the Browns is their defense coordinator.
Oh, Greg Williams.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put them at 6.
Okay.
I love Greg Williams.
Oh, really? Yeah. So just real quick, before I wanted to just jump to the Browns, but real quick, just talking about head coaches, Adam Gase, coming over from Miami, staying in the same division. I mean, obviously, he's got a ton of film on all the teams in the division. Do you think that's going to help him? Obviously, just an opinion question for you. Do you think staying in the same division with the different teams going to help him, as a first-year head coach?
I think it helps him because he went to the team that got Le'Veon Bell, and he might work with those receiving running backs almost as good as Kyle Shanahan does. That's kind of the thing which Adam Gase likes to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Those receiving running backs, those slot receivers who you could pop off screens like Crowder.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so just getting away from the Jets and Giants, one of the teams that probably got, I would say, the most hype around them coming into the year is the Cleveland Browns, just because they've been such a depleted team, and then this year you look at their team, you got Odell, Baker Mayfield, Landry, Myles Garrett, and then Kareem Hunt after the 8-game suspension, but then you have Nick Chubb. I mean, you just look down the entire list of players on offense and defense, and you can.
It looks like the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, you look at them and you say, how is this not going to be a playoff team? But just with the history of the Browns, what are your personal expectations for them? And then, after that, just speaking a little bit about, do you think Baker Mayfield can lead the Browns to the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I don't think they're winning the playoffs this year. I don't think they're going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they traded their best offensive lineman when Baker Mayfield is terrible at sensing pressure. A lot of times when plays broke down, he either got bailed out by his mobility or he got sacked. He got hit pretty hard. And you get rid of that guy when he's not at a stage yet where he's capable of reading those defenses. And you trade that guy for an aging linebacker who's really a defensive end, but with the NFL, he's an outside linebacker.
Yeah.
Somebody who's aging. He's Olivier Vernon. He's 29, 30 now.
Yeah.
His contract's massive. He hasn't played more than 10 games in each of the last 3 seasons with the Giants. And even last season when he was coming back from injuries, it's not like he helped the pass rush at all for them. So I think that I don't think the Browns took a step back by any means. I think their offense is going to be a lot better, like more explosive, but I don't think they're going to be consistent, especially in that division against the defense like the Ravens defense or the Steelers defense or the Bengals defense. But I love their getting Sheldon Richardson with getting Olivier Vernon, because that's their way of saying, well, Lamar Jackson, you can run against us. You can try. But once you cross the 5, you're getting hit.
Yeah.
I do like that. Awesome. But I don't see the Browns winning more than 9 games this year.
Okay, you're just curious, before we move on, who do you have then, kind of winning that division? You don't have to say like a specific team, but, who do you think has the best shot, you think? Ravens, okay.
I think it's Ravens, Steelers, Browns still. I really do.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, just, talking about the Ravens, obviously they got Mark Ingram, and, their defense is always strong. But, do you think that Lamar Jackson, more of a mobile quarterback, kind of like an RG3 type, that he can, sustain playing 16 games and not get injured?
Yeah, I think he can. Lamar Jackson's got the physicality of Cam Newton, and I think he's got a healthier shoulder. But Lamar Jackson's problem is the man has problems throwing at an NFL level. I'm not going to be somebody who says he's a running back as a joke or says he can't throw, but he's rarely on plane. Like, just with how close his stance is, a lot of times he's throwing.
He throws very tall.
Shoulder down. He's throwing balls up, down. He can't throw balls left, right well. He actually physically needs to line himself up. And when he does line himself up, he throws fantastic. But the fact that he has to physically know to set himself, because it's not like a muscle memory thing for whatever reason, probably because he got bailed out by his athleticism up until college started. Lamar Jackson's got to work on that tremendously, but he's also the best physical specimen of a quarterback there's ever been. I mean, whether people like to admit it or not, he's faster than Vic. he runs better than Vic. He runs just as strong as Cam. If he could throw, he'd be on that like greatest of all time talent level.
Yeah, so I mean, do you think if he gets his arm, consistent in the right spot to where, he's making accurate passes, do you think the Ravens, make the playoffs like they did last year, but also take that next step to be a potential Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say if you're in the playoffs and you're going against the Ravens and you stack the box against Lamar Jackson, but he's able to throw a touchdown against the one-on-one on the outside, then I think they're a Super Bowl contender this season.
Yeah, definitely an interesting hot take there. So, just moving over to the NFC, with the Los Angeles Rams, I mean, going to the Super Bowl last year was definitely, a big improvement for them. But, coming into the year, Todd Gurley, as you mentioned a little bit before, you're not sure how he's going to do with the injury that he sustained last year. And then also, Cooper Kupp coming back, so they look strong on offense and defense. But, do you think they've plateaued to their, fullest potential? Or do you think they take that next step and, really coming into their own also in the regular season, but, also in the playoffs and, can be a potential, Super Bowl champion?
I think with Sean McVay at head coach, they're in that sort of Seahawks-Patriots level right now, where they are a Super Bowl contender every year until further notice. Because look at how C.J. Anderson ran when Todd Gurley was out. Like, I'm not saying Todd Gurley's a system back, but I'm saying that system looks pretty good for running backs. That system's pretty good for receivers. Robert Woods never caught 1,000 yards in Buffalo. He just caught 1,400 yards last season. Yeah. I mean, Jared Goff, he was fumbling a little bit towards the end of the season, but he's a fantastic quarterback. He's got probably one of the 5 best arms in the league, probably at 5, but he's got I'd say he has one of the 5 best arms in the league. I mean, look at what he did weeks 1 through 13 before he started slowing down a little bit. He was in the MVP conversation for a few weeks.
Yes.
So I think that the Rams, their problem last year was when their defense was finally healthy. It was at the end of the season, and I felt like their defense didn't have enough time to get into their own. And unpopular opinion, this is a real hot take right here, I thought that Super Bowl was very entertaining. I thought it was awesome watching that chess match between Belichick and McVay.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely, an interesting matchup, maybe not as exciting as people thought, but, it's kind of coming down, more to the schemes and, kind of, playing like that chess match. So it was definitely an interesting Super Bowl. But, coming into the season, a lot of people have high expectations for the NFC, other contender, this New Orleans Saints, because even last year, a lot of people still talk about, that pass interference, call that didn't happen. Do you think, Drew Brees has another year left in him to, also, be an MVP candidate, but also, get that second Super Bowl that he's been, hunting for?
I think that at least this season, the Saints are Super Bowl contenders, but towards the end of the season, and you saw it in the playoffs, I'll reference a specific play. Like, Drew Brees' arm just looked like an old man's arm. Like, the first half of the season, he was lighting everything up, throwing crazy deep passes. I felt like I was watching the 2013 Broncos. Yeah. And then it gets to a point where it's overtime in the playoffs in the NFC Championship game, and he throws a ball that looks like it was lollipopped, and it gets intercepted. And I know he got hit through it, but he didn't power through the throw. He didn't even release it quick enough. I think they need to keep him on a pitch count. I think you don't want Drew Brees having MVP numbers during the regular season. You want him throwing 20 to 25 times a game at most, and you want to really lean on Kamara and whatever other running back they have going for them.
Do you think, more of, sustaining, the consistent amount of passes?
Definitely.
Awesome, yeah. So,
you want Drew Brees to be like your CC Sabathia. You want him to be like he's in the rotation, he's a pitcher. There are going to be some games where he kills it, but look, he's getting a little up there. Let's let him rest a little longer.
Yeah. So, do you think, on the defense side, the Saints have always been, kind of shaky on the defensive side, especially with, Rex Ryan's brother as a defense coordinator who used to be, coming into this year, do you think they have enough pieces on that defensive side of the ball to, sustain a high-powered offense like the Rams in the playoffs?
I do. Yeah, because a lot of their big pieces are on the D-line and secondary, and if you look at the mold for Super Bowl teams, especially the past decade, it's either been big big offense with young D-line and one or two good corners, or it's been you get a good stroke of luck and you have a great offensive line and a young quarterback on a rookie deal. Now, they don't have a young quarterback on a rookie deal, but they have an expensive, explosive offense, and they have a couple great pass rushers and a couple great guys in that secondary. So I think just because they have playmakers and stable players at every other position, I think their defense is more than good enough to contend in the NFC.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely an interesting point, especially, Eli Apple wasn't good in New York, obviously, they kind of pushed him out. But, he kind of towards the end of the season, kind of came into his own. And, you pair him with, a bunch of different other guys like Alex Anzalene. And then, a couple different guys on the defensive line, definitely I could see them.
He's like a poor man's Josh Norman. You can't do man coverage.
No, yeah, definitely. And, like Chris Campbell, people like that, it's definitely going to be an interesting season for the Saints. But then, moving over, I just wanted to talk to you real quick, going back to the AFC about the Chiefs. Just because last year, you saw Patrick Mahomes, kind of explode onto the scene like you've never seen before. He was throwing at such a high rate and, throwing so many touchdowns. But coming into this year, Kareem Hunt's gone. And then, the defense is kind of depleted on the other side of the ball. Do you think Patrick Mahomes himself and the entire team have enough pieces to get back to where they were last year and also take the further step?
Well, yeah, I think they're a Super Bowl contender, definitely. As for a further step, it just matters how the game ends up chalking up, but I actually think their defense might be a little better this year with Dee Ford on the line. But on offense, I don't think an Andy Reid system that losing Kareem Hunt really matters that much. Okay. I think any running back can plug in and play when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, who he's not going to throw 50 touchdowns, but honestly, watching last season, he might be the best quarterback in the NFL right now. As a thrower, as somebody who can win games, as somebody who can move past defenses and put the ball anywhere on the field at any time, who reads defenses, scans the field, goes through his reads, every single thing that makes a quarterback intangibly, I think that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league right now. And I think because of that, that makes the Chiefs a title contender this season.
Yeah, just, saying that, that's definitely a hot take. I know people would consider, Tom Brady even still, they think he's going to play till 50.
I'd accept Aaron Rodgers as the most talented right now. I don't know about Brady. He's the most mentally talented right now.
Yeah, but
I'll say that.
Yeah, just going with Patrick Mahomes, obviously, he had a great season, throwing. But, you look at some of the passes he made and, they were definitely, SportsCenter top 10 plays, with the trick passes, the different, going to his left arm. Yeah, but
it wasn't just one or two of those. It was like he was throwing 3 or 4 of those like sidearm across his body, 45 yards down the field in 2.5 seconds a game, and he was throwing lefty, and he was 3 of his touchdowns were like fake pitches, like forward laterals. It was crazy.
No, yeah, just speaking, about that. Obviously, last year, that was crazy, to see that. But do you think, coming into this year, him doing that, he's almost going to get too relaxed in a sense where, he's not going to, make the right play at the right time, throw, cheap interceptions? Or do you think that's a part of his game that helps him develop into an even better quarterback?
I think that's a part of his game. I think that's the best case scenario of a college spread quarterback, somebody who can improvise plays on the field. The worst case scenario is that they can't see half the field, like when Jared Goff first came into the league. But with Patrick Mahomes, I think that it helps his game. And honestly, any concern about Patrick Mahomes, like not taking a step back, but I'm saying settling, I would say watch that Rams-Chiefs game and the way that he lost that game because he didn't make the throws, even though his defense could have stepped up just once.
Yeah. He
still lost that game. I don't think that in any game like that he can let himself lose again. Just the way he reacted to it between press and things like that, you could read it on his face. It looked like he was like falling into depression.
Yeah.
I actually think he's going to keep pushing himself to see as far as he can go.
Awesome, yeah.
Especially after this season in his second year.
Yeah, that's great to hear, about Patrick Mahomes. But, just, the final division I just wanted to talk about before we let you go is the another AFC division with the Chiefs. I'm sorry, not the Chiefs. We just talked about them. The Colts, and then you got the Texans, and then you got the Titans, and you got the Jaguars. The AFC, that division specifically, you look top to bottom, And, even though the Jaguars didn't have a good year last year, I mean, all four, those teams can, end up winning the division. It just matters about which year. I mean, do you think one team, in your opinion, kind of takes the reins and pulls out, against the other three? Or do you think it's going to be a jumbled division? I mean, who do you think has the best shot?
The Colts are the only team in that division that didn't make a splash in free agency, and that's because right now they're running away with that division.
Oh, really?
The season starts, before training camp starts, the Colts, that's their division to lose.
Really?
I would say if they lose it, it's Houston who's going to take it. Tennessee is very, very underrated, but that's because every time Mariota seems to be getting into his own, he gets a 2 or 3 week knee sprain or an ankle sprain or whatever.
Yeah.
But I would say the only team that has no shot of winning that this year is the Jaguars. This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I don't believe in Nick Foles outside of Philly at all.
Oh, really? So is it just,
I saw what he did with the Rams. I saw the Chiefs where he almost had to retire. I mean, he'll have good games. He's a great quarterback.
Do you think it was just a scheme in Philly that helped them, or do you think,
entirely.
Okay, yeah.
Entirely scheme.
No, yeah.
I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm saying he's a system quarterback.
Yeah,
and the Jaguars do not have a system for quarterbacks. Ask Blake Bortles. He came out of college as a fantastic piece, and his first year and into his second year, he was a great passer, and then all of a sudden they wanted to make him something else, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah, definitely, just a scheme in Philly, even with Carson Wentz, definitely Nick Foles, we've seen him throughout his whole career struggle outside of Philly, so that'll definitely be interesting. But I just wanted to get back to, you talking about the Colts saying it was their division to lose. I mean, even with the Texans winning 11 games last year, bringing back, J.J. Watt, having Jadeveon Clowney with the additions of, a couple other pieces, even though they lost Tyrann Mathieu. But then, you come onto the offensive side and you still got DeAndre Hopkins and you still got Deshaun Watson. And I believe they still have Lamar and Miller. I mean, why do you think they're going to take a step back in the division? Or do you think the Colts are just going to take a step up? I mean, why do you think...
The Colts are going to take a step up.
Okay. So you think the Colts are going to, win 12 games? I mean... Just because, the Colts have always, the past few years at least, struggled with defense, and then you look at Andrew Luck, he's had a few arm problems. I mean, do you think the Colts can sustain that for a whole 16-game season?
Yeah, the beginning of the season was kind of marred because up until week 5, Andrew Luck didn't throw a ball farther than 35 yards.
Yeah.
In week 8, they didn't let him throw the possible game-winning Hail Mary. They brought in Brissett.
Yeah, I remember that.
So when you have Darius Leonard on that defense, it's crazy how one guy can really change a defense, and the only two positions where that can really happen are middle linebacker and outside linebacker / defensive end, a big pass rusher. Darius Leonard is that guy. I mean, he wasn't a Pro Bowler because the Pro Bowl is it's a joke, but he was an All-Pro. He was Rookie of the Year. I mean, there were some plays where it was just kind of like he ran in and just ripped the ball out of people's hands like they were children, and he was the man on the field. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But they also locked down Pierre Sear. He's getting better. I think the Colts as a defense are growing around Darius Leonard. I think that's going to be their focal point this season. But on offense, you have a line that allowed Luck to not get sacked in 4 weeks while he had the touchy shoulder, especially before we knew 100% that he could throw deep balls.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to go on a couple, 5, maybe even 6-game win streaks, a couple. And I think they're going to run away with that division.
Yeah, that's definitely, an interesting hot take there. Just because, the Texans, the past few years have, kind of taken reign of the AFC South, before, Andrew Luck's first few years in the NFL where he kind of, took over the division. So, just moving outside, the regular season, I just wanted to, the last part of the segment real quick, get your opinions on we won't go through every division, standings, stuff like that, but, who do you think personally is going to not win the Super Bowl, a few contenders in each, conference, and then also who do you think right now, the way it's looking, has the best chance to, win the Super Bowl?
I'm going to say the Patriots probably have the best chance to go out of the AFC, and I think out of the NFC, I want to say the Packers.
Really?
I do. After a 5-11 season, I want to say the Packers, just because of the huge strides they made with their defensive line and their linebacking core this offseason. I think that's going to be. I mean, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to score 28 a game anymore.
Yeah. I mean, just definitely, I was kind of shocked, when you said the Packers in the NFC, just because we didn't touch on them. I kind of thought that, we weren't going to have to mention them. But, you just bringing up the Packers, definitely an interesting point. I mean, do you think last year was the problem Mike McCarthy, or do you just think it was the lack of defensive talent?
I think it was McCarthy getting complacent. I think Aaron Rodgers wasn't happy with McCarthy. I know there's been a lot of stuff that's come out about their deteriorating relationship. Yeah. It's like watching Degrassi. And I mean, their defense, their secondary was horrendous last year. But it's funny, because of how many linebackers they got, even if the secondary is still bad, the way the linebackers are, a couple of them are great zone linebackers. One of them's a fantastic pass rusher. They can scheme around having weak corners.
No, looking at their corner depth, a lot of them are rookies, first or second year guys. So definitely, do you think, outside of, the cornerbacks, that the, defensive line and the linebackers are going to be able to handle, kind of holding the reins on the defensive side?
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah, who do you think's the biggest?
I don't think they'll be a top 5 unit. I think they'll be just sitting outside the top 10.
Kind of holding their own.
It's going to be top 5.
Interesting. Yeah, just going through their defense, any specific guy that, you see on paper that's going to, kind of make a huge impact?
There was a signing, and I forget the person's name.
Do you know what position? Just because I got the roster.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the roster right now.
Just because, Rashawn Gary obviously, slipped in the draft a little. He has huge upside. But, just looking after him.
Yeah, Rashawn Gary's somebody where he has the potential to be crazy this season, but there's a good chance he'll be a second year, third year guy.
Yeah. And even, having still Mike Daniels, he's been definitely a cornerstone on that defense. And then moving outside, Tramon Williams, a veteran cornerback they brought in, even though, he's kind of an older guy, 36, 13 years in the league, definitely will help out the young guys. Even, Kenny Clark, so they definitely have some great pieces.
I can't remember the names of the linebackers. There was the Ravens linebacker who they signed. Do you remember the name of him? His name?
Right now, linebackers that are coming to my head, I could pull up, the linebackers there.
Yeah, there's so many linebackers that were signed this offseason.
Yeah, I know. Just, they have Blake Martinez has been pretty good there.
It's not really about one specific signing, honestly. It's more about the whole unit and the fact that they chose to overhaul that whole unit.
No, yeah, definitely. Kind of, they flipped, kind of flipped the table definitely with their, signings. Obviously they signed Zadarius Smith. That was the guy from Baltimore.
Yeah.
So just looking at his stats even from last year, the upside there, at such a young age, is definitely gonna help. So you think the Packers? So obviously you think the Packers are gonna have a good year, but outside of that, do you think the Bears fall off just because Trubisky, was a high pick? Definitely kind of shocked people that he was taken so quick. Do you think?
Yeah, I remember that. The 49ers got a steal though because they were getting Solomon Thomas out of the way.
Yeah, just looking at the Bears. Everyone's kind of like high on the Bears right now. I'm kind of questioning them. Do they really have any good pieces on the offensive side? So any opinions on the Bears?
They remind me of a slightly worse 2012 Seahawks, and I think slightly worse isn't fair to say because I can't put Mitch Trubisky anywhere near Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
A lot of Mitch Trubisky's stats came from a lot of gamble plays, a lot of scheme things, a lot of
he was definitely a scheme quarterback.
So when I hear the head coach, I'm forgetting his name, but when I hear him come out and I hear him say,
Mike Nagy.
Yeah, Mike Nagy. I like him. He's a great coach. Yeah. But when I hear him come out and I hear him say, yeah, Mitch is going to come out this year, he's going to do different things, like we knew he could, we just didn't let him do it. I wanna pump the brakes on that a little bit. I don't wanna speculate that Trubisky's just gonna come out and throw 4,500 yards.
No, yeah.
But I want to look at what I know is there, and I know that offense is a 22 to 24 point per game offense. I know that defense is shaping up to be the best defense since the 2015 Broncos, which was a top 5 all-time defense.
Okay, yeah. I mean, just looking at, obviously Khalil Mack's there, but anyone else?
Eddie Jackson.
Okay.
Eddie Jackson is by far and away right now the best strong safety in the NFL.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I remember last year, he had a great season. Just, definitely the Bears are someone interesting, just to look at because, a lot of people have them winning the division, and it's interesting that, you went with the Packers there. Yeah, so, just, looking.
It's not a hype pick, I promise.
No, yeah, I love, the prediction, everyone kind of, just stays stagnant with the same teams. It's awesome to hear, different opinions and, definitely, predictions that are, very reasonable because, you usually see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. So, just, kind of, wrapping up, before we let you go, any final words or hot takes you want to, just let people know about, in your opinion? If you don't have any, it's fine. I'm just curious because, you've already said a few.
I don't think there will be a rookie running back that hits 1,000 yards this year.
Really?
I'm not convinced.
Yeah. Just looking, obviously, Josh Jacobs would be the favorite to do it. Outside of him, I'm not really sure.
He only ran 270 times in college.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he kind of, came on late in the season, in the college football playoffs. His draft stock definitely rose at the end of the year. But looking outside of him, there's not really anyone that I'm looking on paper and saying, this guy is gonna be good.
I really like Miles Sanders from Penn State.
Okay.
The Saquon backup.
Yeah.
But he's also in a running back by committee in Philly.
Okay, yeah. So, just looking at Philly, but yeah, even though he might have a good season, they kind of, like you just said, run on committee, so he won't be getting enough touches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, interesting hot take there. With Miles Sanders. So just thanks, for coming on the podcast. It was great to talk to you. Enjoy the rest of your summer. We look forward to seeing you back at Seton Hall, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks. And, hopefully, the Packers pan out. I'm definitely going to be watching them now.
Yeah, no, I think they'll surprise people. I think Aaron Rodgers wants to be in this position. I think he's been a little too comfortable being told he's going to be an 11-5 quarterback every season.
Awesome. Yeah, I
think he's the type of guy who can't really take having a bunch of people now all of a sudden say he's not, like, the greatest after this season and calling him.
Yeah, he definitely thrives on people's,
A lot of rude things.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so, just thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your night.
All right, thank you. You too, man.
Have a good night. Yeah, so that was Matthew Pavlik, from Seton Hall. Definitely a lot of interesting takes, just from him. It was definitely awesome to hear, going through a lot of different teams and, looking, kind of something that shocked me personally, was him picking the Green Bay Packers to come in the NFC. So it was, awesome to hear that from him. And, everything else was awesome to hear from him. Thanks for joining and, listening along with us, and have a good night. Thanks.